Alright, everybody, I have a very important announcement to make today. I've got a hat. Look at this thing. Hello, everybody. Today I begin a brand new cosplay. Let's go. And of course, I am building the one, the only, the guy who got gypped more than any other toy in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. I am building Pianosaurus. As we all know, Pianosaurus is an incredible character, at least in terms of his design and his potential. But unfortunately, got 20 seconds of screen time in Chapter 4, and it was very disappointing to a lot of us. And so I'm going to redeem him. I'm going to bring back Pianosaurus like never before because I'm building a life-sized, fully functional Pianosaurus cosplay. Let's get into it. To get started, I purchased a baseball helmet in which to build the base of the cosplay head around. Then I took a carbon fiber tube that I then measured out in order to create the neck support for Pianosaurus' head. From there, I simply cut it down to the length that I needed. Okay, so this is the plan for how we're going to do this. So in order to build up his neck, which my head will be inside of, what I've got is I got this lovely little carbon fiber tube I just cut. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take these pieces right here, put one here, and put another one on the other end, like this, and then on top of the helmet, put this right here, it's going to go like this. It's just going to rest on top. Oh wait, that's a little crooked. There we go. Yeah, so this is going to rest on top just like this. So basically, if you can imagine, his neck is going to just kind of curve over this whole structure, kind of like in that rough shape. Maybe you guys can't see it just yet, but don't worry, it'll make sense here in a little bit. So yeah, so this is the base structure. So our goal now is to put all this together into one cohesive piece. I actually ended up putting the PVC coupling on the bill of the hat rather than the top because it was easier to attach and better for a new design layout that I had in mind. Next, I drilled out the holes on the wooden support beam that would connect the neck to the head. Yeah, it kind of made me look like a bit of a bizarre unicorn at this point. Then for extra support, I used a length of plumber's tape on each side in order to help hold the head up properly. I actually ended up connecting them on using drywall screws. The result was a support system that could hold the large head up easily. Next, I began patterning the outline of his head. Then cut that pattern out onto 2 pieces of EVA foam and reinforced it with some cardboard. Next, I added some depth to the head by building up a thin wall of EVA foam on the back wall of the head. This was the moment when I began to realize just how big and heavy his head was going to be. Then it was time to go ahead and glue on his face panel. The glue that I'm using here is called contact cement and by far is the best glue I've ever used in order to seal together EVA foam pieces. Using a Dremel, I rounded out all the edges of the head to give it a nice rounded finished look. It was at this point when I realized that Pianosaurus' face kind of looks a lot like a smiling critter's. What do you guys think? Next, I crafted out his little muzzle that will be on the front of his face. This part was pretty simple, given how it's just a simple little triangle shape. From there, I used contact cement to glue it down. Next are his eyes. His eyes are sort of located on these weird lumps on the top of his head, so I went ahead and crafted those out of EVA foam and attached them onto the head. I then gave the whole head a coating of green spray paint. Now here's the tedious part. I had to paint each and every one of his scales on by hand individually, one by one. This took me an entire day, but believe me when I tell you, the results were worth it. It looked amazing. I chose to use 2 ping pong balls for his eyes. And using a bit of super glue, I got the eyes in place. Next, I created and painted his cheek blushes out of EVA foam. I then sculpted his 4 horns out of EVA foam, starting with the smallest and working my way up to the 3 larger ones. And this process went reasonably quick, given how I can just simply use the pattern I made for the first horn and just simply duplicate it for the next 2. After painting and attaching the horns, Pianosaurus was really starting to take shape. Next, it was time to attach the head onto the neck framework. It was time to see whether or not my structural support would hold up his head. Okay, guys. Ugh. Pianosaurus has made some headway, quite literally. This thing is absolutely massive. So, the next thing that we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and fill in and do the last step of his actual head itself, I guess. That would be his teeth. His light up piano teeth. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Let's get into it. I started by taking a piece of EVA foam and cutting it out to the same size as the mouth. I chose to use LED rainbow string lights to light up his teeth. I felt it was the simplest and most straightforward way to do this, and the result turned out quite nice. Now it was time to build up the outer layers of his teeth, so I used several pieces of EVA foam and cut out smaller strips to put in between each of the light string bits so that I could support up the outer layer of foam that would make up the surface of his teeth. Here I began to trace out and cut out each of his individual piano key teeth. After I finished cutting out his foam teeth, I went ahead and glued them on using super glue to the foam supports. I cut the black keys of his piano key teeth out of black EVA foam. Then went ahead and glued them into his mouth. And with that, we finally had a Pianosaurus. And now the fun part. I got to go ahead and paint on all of his gnarly, withered, and bloody details all over his face. This is the point in where he really started to come to life. Alright guys, so the last thing we're going to need to finish up Pianosaurus' head is a bit of branding. I want to put a PLaytime Co logo on the back of his head, and we're going to do this with 3D printing. And I'd like to give a huge shout out to Elegoo for sending me out these printers for this video so I can show you guys how they work. They sent me out a Mars 5 Ultra resin 3D printer. I hopped online and found a nice 3D model of the PLaytime Co logo and put it into my slicing program. Then sent it over to the printer and got printing. It was really cool to see the thing in action. And soon enough, I had a finished product coming off my build plate. Using a scraping tool, I was able to pry the model off the build plate. Now it was time to both wash and cure the model, and I used the wash and cure stations that Elegoo also sent me along with the printer. These machines really helped to streamline the whole process. Afterwards, I had a nice finished, clean PLaytime Co logo ready to be painted. So I used a quick layer of green spray paint to give it some color. And used some super glue to glue it onto the back of his head. Then I used a bit of black paint to rough it up and make it blend in with the rest of the build. And with that, Pianosaurus' head was all done. Now, before I go ahead and show you guys the reveal, I just wanted to give one last shout out to Elegoo for sending me out this 3D printer and these wash and cure stations. They are amazing. If you guys want to check out any of their products, I'll have some links down in the description. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video, and I really hope you enjoyed what you saw today. And I would really appreciate it if you guys, give a like and subscribe down below. It really helps me and the channel. Anyways, that's it for now, so until the next one. See ya!